think it's the ultimate empathy experience because you do find people who you can identify with that perhaps put it into words or illustration that you never really got to experience in real life.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I find it when the movie Drive is one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And Ryan Gosling's performance in that, I think, is so strong. And that was the start of his like quiet, you know, stoic, empty kind of guys. But I felt like at the time in my life, there was something about me that really identified with him.
Yeah.
I feel a lot when I'm listening to music, and I feel empty unless I have like a strong feeling of anger, and that's when I would really feel. And watching that meant so much to me.
Sure.
To watch that portrayal, like, oh, I get it. I identify with this, and I think a lot of times when movies, we forget about that experience, especially with what movies have become. Because there's like 1 billion movies out there, but the ones that are like touted are not the things we're talking about. You know? So yeah.
I just had an epiphany. I'm sorry to keep this going. The moment you talked about Ryan Gosling and Drive as how you identify is in this moment why I'm realizing and this is a big movie, so it's going to be a funny way to end things. I think the reason I'm so upset about the way the Disney stuff is going with Downey as Doom is because he's always been an anchor for me when I've felt not seen. Downey is someone I always go back to. I always look at Downey's performances and I always feel informed. And it's the first time that I feel like he's doing something for money, not for art. And I hope I'm proven wrong. But the Doom announcement, I think it was personal because I've always been like excited for connecting to what Downey's going through and connecting to the human and the actor, which is another thing we talked about. And I think Doom is the first time I was like, that's inauthentic. And again, in 2 years, I really hope we see that it's for another thing. But I think that's been why I've been struggling with that choice because Downey, whether it's Kiss Kiss Bang Bang or Chaplin or any of his stuff that isn't in Marvel, that's always been the guy.
Yeah.
And now that he's doing something that feels so not him, it's been hard for me to assess.
Honestly, it's kind of like my whole experience with Marvel as of late.
Yeah.
It is. That's why the Russo brothers didn't excite me. Because, yes, I get it. It's a business. Of course I know it's a business.
But the word show comes first.
Yeah, I think there's just so much of we're in this time where we have such an awareness of the business with things now.
The internet, dude.
Of course we know it's a business. And the fan association with, and the way how like movies seem to adjust based off of that. There's something about the Russo brothers that just felt like this was never part of the plan originally.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they ever wanted this to happen.
I think Secret Wars, but I don't think the two
wanted
films,
Secret Wars,
because that was very public.
Yeah.
But the idea of doing what they're doing now feels like a pivot.
Yes, and I get you have to do that, but there's just so much exposure to what celebrities go through.
Yeah.
What they have to deal with in court, Jonathan Majors, and then now with just the whole industry of Marvel. Like there's something about the way Marvel's going where I'm not as excited as I want to be, even though I'm definitely going to be there.
Yeah, I'll be there opening night. But every announcement in the last few days, like all the Kevin Feige stuff, as I've read it and not felt any.
Like, how do we know? We know so much stuff.
And business is so the forefront of the internet side of it.
It's strange. It's a strange time where it's interesting to go down this path of how we grew up on movies.
Yeah.
To then likening it to now. And Denzel said this in the interview where Jamie Foxx interviewed him.
Love that interview.
About, see, I forget what the exact word for word quote is, but it's something about like, if you drink too much water, you're going to drown.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that's the industry.
Yeah.
Is like too much of it. You can have too much for sure.
Because we've overanalyzed everything up until the release, and then we're just filling in the dots. And then we know people's personal lives to the point where there's not a full separation of church and state with what we're seeing on screen.
Yeah.
And I really worry that, like, you know, I can't just watch a Marvel movie. Like we just don't get that experience.
There's trailers for trailers. There's like 3 trailers. There's set photos. There's nonstop interviews.
Yeah.
It's nonstop. And yeah, I've never quite hit the nail on the head for me of what it is about the announcement of the Russo brothers that just doesn't quite do it. I'm really intrigued by the Robert Downey Jr. part. I am. I agree.
Yeah.
I do. I agree. At the same time, I'm like, I really want to see
Show me.
Like, this could be a disaster or this could be awesome. Let's find out. And so I'm really intrigued by that. But I do agree about the business move of it. You know, it just sounds like something that I don't feel like. Yeah, I get they're desperate, but when you can feel the desperation,
it's not the same art. And I think when we're talking about our favorite actors right now, those are all people I don't know a lot about. Like, I don't know a lot about Brad Pitt or Ed Norton or
that's another thing too. We know so much about
the people in it.
Yeah, we know so much about the people that are in these things now.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like I remember Christian Bale talking about how he thinks there's too much behind. This is around the time of the Batman Begins DVD.
Yeah.
I stopped watching behind the scenes stuff because of him.
Yeah.
In the behind the scenes interview, he was saying, I think there's too much exposure to behind the scenes because it ruins the magic.
I agree.
And I agreed with that at a very young age of him on a behind the scenes TV commentary.
And I'm done.
Then I was like, yeah, it does. Like, you can learn a lot if you're an aspiring filmmaker. You absolutely can. But even TV shows now have it, which is a weird part of the climate where I watch The Walking Dead and then a second later, or any HBO show, and then a second later, it's like, here's a whole behind the scenes of the episode you just watched. And it immediately takes you out of the experience because now I'm aware of the construct of how they did it and everything. And I'm not being lost in the story anymore.
I always love that Bale did all of his interviews as the character's accent. And so most people didn't know he was Welsh because it kept you in that character. Like he was that character even for just subconscious shit.
Yeah.
And we don't have that right now.